What's going on, world? This is Hotep, president and founder of the Hustle University, here to bring you the amazing and true story of the Hustler's 10 Commandments. So, with that, let me go ahead and tell you the true story of how this all came about. The story of the Hustler's 10 Commandments actually dates back to 2005. At that time, I was a music producer who had just released a film called Independent Doing Major Things. It was a documentary about what was popping in the Atlanta area. The film was just produced for me as a way to display my music. But during this time, I had started developing a reputation as a bona fide hustler in the city of Atlanta to the extent my nickname at the time was actually Hustle Simmons. So, based off of my reputation and my nickname, I created the Hustler's 10 Commandments as 10 principles to help other people get their hustle on appropriately, like we were doing in the city of Atlanta. I didn't think much of it, I just put it in the film and let it be. The film did pretty good for me. In fact, later that year, I was able to release the film at a major theater. The film actually did so well that it beat Harry Potter 4 on opening night. The film was so successful, it actually led me on a film tour throughout the United States. On one of my tour dates, I met a young lady named Nancy. Nancy was so impressed with my hustle and the way I was going about promoting my film that she invited me to Reno, Nevada during a media conference to speak about those Hustlers 10 Commandments. So here is a picture of me in 2006 in Reno, Nevada at the first occasion of me presenting the Hustlers 10 Commandments. If you look closely in the audience, you'll see this young lady here who I circled in red. If you don't recognize her, I want to let you know that that person there is actually Lisa Nichols. Many of you might know Lisa Nichols from her appearance in the major motion picture The Secret. She's an international speaker, author, and a bona fide hustler in her own right. But I find it ironic that the first time I did the presentation for the Hustler's 10 Commandments, she was sitting in my audience. Someone else who was also in the audience was Omar Tyree. Omar Tyree at the time was an Essence best-selling author. At the time, I had never even thought about writing a book. Omar Tyree presented as well, and he shared all of the great things that were happening for him as a self-produced author. So in any case, after hearing comments from Lisa Nichols and Omar Tyree, I decided that, man, it would be a good idea to write a book, if for no other reason, just to protect my intellectual property, because as I was doing this presentation, people were taking notes, and I didn't want them to feel empowered to utilize my intellectual property, my words, my thoughts, my ideas, and play them off as their own. So I decided to write the Hustler's 10 Commandments book only as a way to protect my intellectual property. On my way home from Reno, Nevada, I called a bunch of my friends and invited them to contribute to what would become, ladies and gentlemen, the Hustler's 10 Commandments. This is when things started really changing for me, and I saw the different possibilities for the message that I had. So then I started touring as a musician, filmmaker, and published author, screening the film, answering questions about the film, and then also signing copies of the book, The Hustler's 10 Commandments. One of the events I had done back in Atlanta, I ran across someone who would become a long term friend and business partner. His name was Nicholas Red Scott. Red was asking about my music and film, but then I told him about the book I had just released. And being the good friend that he is, he went ahead and purchased one of the first copies of the book that was ever sold. Because of how the book had impacted him, we decided that we were going to partner up and find ways to promote the book on a higher level. It's at that point that Red designed the original Hustler's 10 Commandments bookmark, which we still use to promote the book and Hustle University to this day. After that point, our friendship, our partnership was solidified, and me and Red hit the streets like a tsunami with extra silverback gorilla style hustle. Along the way, we met a lot of famous people who were also inspired and endorsed the book. One of those people was Cornell West. Another one was Al Sharpton, who endorsed our book. We met Vivica Fox, who was excited about the Hustler's 10 Commandments. Hip hop mogul Russell Simmons got down with the movement. But probably one of the most instrumental endorsements that we got at the time was one from Rick Ross. Now remember, this is 2006. Rick Ross had just hit the scene at this time, and the title of his first song, You All Know, was every day I'm hustling. So this endorsement was very instrumental in bringing the Hustler's 10 Commandments to the consciousness of society at that time. Rick Ross had his hit song, and I had a hit book. So after the endorsement from Rick Ross, I went back to my music production roots and decided to create a mixtape. But different from many other mixtapes, mine was what I called a motivational mixtape. This is what began the multimedia empire that is now Hustle University. And this is actually an image of the first bookmark I had created with the Hustler's 10 Commandments on the backside. So after seeing the moves that I was making, Nancy calls me again. She says, Hotep, we're having another conference in Philadelphia. She flies me into Philadelphia, and there I meet Audrey. Now, Audrey was so excited about my film and the book, she asked me a very important question that I hadn't even considered at the time. She said, Hotep, have you ever had an official book release party for the Hustler's 10 Commandments? I said, no. She said, listen, you gotta have it. I'll produce it. So she flew down to Atlanta and we actually booked Cafe Dupree. As you note from the last name, yes, this was a restaurant owned by music mogul Jermaine Dupri. We had the book release party on October 5th, 2006 at Cafe Dupree in Buckhead, Atlanta. Here are some photos from the book release party itself. It was at this book release party that we made a great connection and established a partnership with Rolling Out Magazine. And since that day, they have been great supporters of Hustle University and our entire movement. After being featured in their magazine, it was requested of me to continue doing more presentations based off of these Hustlers 10 Commandments. Those presentations became so popular that Usher Raymond reached out, brought me into his summer youth camp to do a presentation for his kids. So after doing these presentations on a regular basis for a few months, I had a fateful meeting with my friend 2Biz Barrett. He and I sat together at a coffee house and started talking about what was going on with the Hustler's 10 Commandments and the momentum that I was having. He said, Hotep, I see you doing these classes. They're getting really popular and such. It's almost like you have your own school. It's like a Hustle University. And that was the statement that changed everything for me. So it was actually that day that I went home and purchased the domain and started the process for trademarking Hustle University. This is the actual first graphical representation of Hustle U back then in 2006. 10 years later, here is what the brand Hustle University looks like. And as you can see, we've changed it up a little bit because now we provide higher learning for today's hardcore entrepreneur. And that is the reason why I felt it was important that we not only celebrated the Hustler's 10 Commandments for its decade-long prominence as an entrepreneurial classic, but also to re-release the book. So here you see the Old Testament, which was written back in 2006, and now the New Testament, Hustler's 10 Commandments, 2016. So ladies and gentlemen, that's it. That is the true amazing story of the Hustler's 10 Commandments, told only the way it can be told by its author, myself, Hotep, business abolitionist, president and founder of the Hustle University, found as always at hustleuniversity.org, and I welcome all of you to the Hustlelution. Peace.